Good morning, everybody. It is Weather Forecaster back with another tropical update here on now confirmed Tropical Storm Cristobal. This is our third update, the new advisory here. So this is my third advisory here since this has been a named storm. Tropical depression. So Cristobal is currently now making landfall as a tropical storm over Mexico and parts of the Bay of Campeche, and very soon here it'll go once again out into the Gulf of Mexico and possibly become a tropical storm once again, and maybe a weak Category 1 hurricane and make a landfall for parts of the Gulf Coast, mainly Louisiana. But we are going to be seeing widespread flooding, extreme, maybe even hurricane force winds, and much more. So we're going to be talking about all of that in today's video. Also, be sure to subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys all so much for the support. We got a ton of subscribers yesterday. Let's try to do that today. And also be sure to hit the like button if you really love this video, and share the video to anybody that you know that lives in the Gulf Coast that could possibly get affected by Cristobal. But without further ado, let's get in this video. Also, a mention here, Cristobal did break the record for the earliest sea ever in history. The record was June 5th, and of course it was named on June 2nd. So now June 2nd is the record for the world or the fastest sea to be named in the Atlantic ever. It's so crazy to have a sea in June 2nd or now June 3rd. It's absolutely crazy. But this thing really strengthened a lot overnight. We have 60 miles per hour here. It did strengthen it quite a bit, and minimal central pressure is at 995. So the central pressure has gone up a little bit. So as it does make landfall, this will possibly go back to a tropical depression and then go back to a tropical storm status, and maybe a possibility for a hurricane status. So 995 millibars, and it's continuing to now move to the southeast at 3 miles per hour. So it basically is somewhat stalling. So this is going to bring catastrophic flooding throughout parts of the Yucatan Peninsula, the Bay of Campeche, and it's also going to bring catastrophic flooding widespread across parts of the Gulf Coast. So this is where we have it right now. Let's go ahead and check out the wind speed probability here. So we do have a 90 to 100% chance for tropical storm force winds for inland areas as well. So Mexico's definitely going to get hit by this tropical storm. So this tropical storm can very well make 2 landfalls, one in Mexico, and then one and possibly most likely Louisiana. So as the system does continue to move in closer and closer to the Gulf of Mexico, once it goes like this probability of tropical storm force winds is definitely going to strengthen, or actually going to go up a lot. So we're going to definitely have a 90 to 100% chance in the next coming days for tropical storm force winds for parts of the central Gulf of Mexico. So as you see, we are seeing these tropical storm force winds to be guaranteed. And not only that, we do have, of course, these tropical storm warnings across these areas. And also, like I said, tropical storm warnings across millions across the Mexico coast here for much of the Bay of Campeche. Let's go ahead and check out the satellite imagery here on the system. So as you see, it is continuing to make its way through Mexico at a very slow pace. That's exactly why the system is going to be going back to a tropical depression. So it's going to be going straight down to below 39 miles per hour, so wind speed. So as we continue to have these flight here, these aircrafts moving in tropical storm tropical storm Cristobal, this is going to continue to see weaker winds and also higher pressure, but it's going to go back into the Gulf of Mexico and go at the kind of at a faster pace. But we are still going to see that possibility of being once again a tropical storm. So here it is right now, tropical storm Cristobal. It is, I believe, has already made landfall in Mexico. So we could possibly have a tropical depression by tonight, most likely, or tomorrow morning. We will have a depression, and then it'll go back as a tropical storm by the next, I believe, 60 hours. So this is where we have it right now. Let's go ahead and check out the visible satellite imagery here. We have to wait until it actually brines up. So this is where it is right now. This major system bringing very dense cloud cover, and it's going to continue to bring flash flooding for millions. As you guys know, this was once Amanda. This was Tropical Storm Amanda, and it made landfall for Guatemala, and it went through this exact same area, and now it's going like this once again. So this is not just catastrophic flooding. This is 2 times catastrophic flooding, because it brought up to, I believe, feet of rain for Mexico and Guatemala and El Salvador, and now it's coming back once again to bring in even more rain. So we might see feet and feet of rain in Mexico here. It's absolutely crazy how this thing has made 2 landfalls now, technically for Central America, and then once again it's going to be going up now into the Gulf Coast. So here it is. You can kind of see you can kind of definitely see this thing is moving to the southeast here. So it's not going directly to the south. If it were to go directly to the south, this thing would not hit the United States, but it's going to be going to the southeast. So it's going to kind of go like this, and then it'll go out like this. It all depends really. If it goes like this, then we'll have potentially a hurricane because it obviously has more ocean. But if it goes like this thing's going to take a lot longer to strengthen once again. But it all depends. If honestly, the only thing that's really important is that wind speed. If it goes maybe at 50 miles per hour, obviously it's going to get into the ocean sooner. But if it's staying at 30 miles per hour and stalling, it's going to obviously weaken at a really fast pace there. So here we are seeing these tropical storm warnings across the dark blue and those coastlines of the Bay of Campeche. And of course, it is expected to possibly be a tropical depression by later tomorrow here, by the next 20, more like than 30 hours. So by tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, this will be a very weak tropical storm, if not depression. And by guaranteed tomorrow evening, this will be a tropical depression. And then by tomorrow or by Friday in the evening, this will be once again a tropical storm. And as you see, it's going to be doing, it's almost done with that boomerang turn. It's ready to do like this. So based on the cone, this is not going to go like through that area. That means it will weaken really fast. It's going to go like this. And it'll be actually in the ocean very soon. So it's going to be getting those favorable conditions once again with a little shear, warm SSTs, and all of that. It could very well become a very strong tropical storm before landfall. As you see, it is expected to make a landfall most likely maybe in the evening of Thursday. Sunday evening is most likely when we'll definitely have that potential landfall. And the areas that are on the cone are all the way from Texas to parts of the Alabama border with Mississippi. So we have a very widespread area of potential tracks. So this thing can either go like this. When you have a cone this big, really, it's really scary and uncertain where this can go. It can either go like this to Texas or all the way to Alabama. We have no idea. But guaranteed, it's going to be affecting these areas. Guaranteed, it's going to be affecting these areas with flooding rains no matter where this goes. Actually, we're seeing this flooding rains right here. Flooding rain for these general areas because of Cristobal, even if it's not even close. So expected landfall, tropical storm on Sunday evening. But of course, it's still days away from getting this general vicinity. So obviously, this thing became a tropical storm very early and unexpectedly. So this thing can become a hurricane unexpectedly. But as of right now, the National Hurricane does so just being a tropical storm. So here's the new model track guidance. So of course, we're gonna be based on the spaghetti models. This is the expected cone of where this can possibly go. Obviously, it's gonna be where all the spaghetti models. So it's basically, like I said, Alabama to Texas. So it's not too big of it's not too widespread, but it can either hit New Orleans. It can either hit Mobile, Houston, and we have big cities. That's exactly why it is a big area of certain. So basically, in my opinion, I think Louisiana is definitely going to get hit with the landfall, in my opinion. Obviously, most of the spaghetti models are directing it to Louisiana, but we don't know exactly what part of Louisiana. We have the western coast, we have the eastern coast in New Orleans, and we have the central coast. The central coast seems like it is going to get hit because this thing's going to be going directly to the north, really. But who knows? We still have the possibility of it extending a bit more to the east and maybe hitting parts of the eastern Gulf Coast. So this is what we're looking at here in this new spaghetti model. New intensity guidance here. And of course, it is expected to weaken in the next coming hours, so it could become a tropical depression. Some models show it becoming a borderline tropical storm at its weakest and then going back to a very strong tropical storm, getting close to 60 knots here. But other side of the models are showing it getting to a tropical depression all the way from the next really 16 hours, really, something like that, all the way to the next 30 or almost 40 hours. So we have that possibility for having a depression once again. But we also have two models that are showing it just going straight to a hurricane, which it is unexpected to see, or it's not really likely we will see this thing strengthen. It's going to weaken unless it's like staying in the Bay of Campeche just off the coast of Mexico, which it is already made landfall, so you can't really say it's going to go out right now. So expect a weakening, whether it's a borderline tropical storm or depression. And then expect that strengthening by the next really 48 hours. Really, we're gonna be seeing it starting to strengthen when these you're gonna start seeing stronger winds, lower pressure, and expect the peak of this to be the next 96 hours, right before a landfall. But it'll definitely be a tropical storm. It'll definitely be named when it is when it makes landfall, whether a tropical storm or borderline hurricane. As we now look at the new model runs here, that's from this morning, we have the GFS model was actually accurate on this, but it was actually accurate, but it did take a while to actually get to that point. So it is going to possibly go around the general area of the Yucatan Peninsula near Cancun, and then go back, spill back out into the Gulf of Mexico there. I do expect it to be at 997 millibars, bring a catastrophic flooding throughout parts of the Gulf Coast, and could go down as far down as 992 millibars. Very strong. This is the next 90 hours, and we expect that peak at around 96 hours, 90 hours. So that's going to be at its peak really by June 7th, and then it can make landfall on June 8th, or sorry, late June 7th, which is the Sunday night. So Sunday night might be the landfall, which is not good. You do not want a night landfall. You're going to be seeing catastrophic flooding. Only thing that's good at night is that not as many people are going to be out, but going to be seeing catastrophic flooding for parts as far east as Florida. This is all from Cristobal. I know it's weird to think that Cristobal is right here, but this is all from Cristobal. So the GFS model does show making landfall in Louisiana and then going out into the Arkansas area. So we can see catastrophic flooding as well, or major flash flooding as far north as parts of the Central Plains and Ozarks. So definitely, it's so weird to see this track. When you see the 2020 tracks, you're going to be seeing the system first developing right here, then making landfall basically right here, then going out into the Atlantic, then doing a U-turn like this, then like this. This is a super weird track in my opinion, how it went from Amanda to Cristobal to now tropical storm Cristobal to tropical depression Cristobal to possibly tropical storm Cristobal, maybe even hurricane Cristobal. Absolutely crazy. This is definitely a historic track. Not the strength of it, but the historic track. Like, wow, not because it was named for both oceans, but because of the track of it. This thing has lasted for more than a week here, about a week and a half basically. So absolutely crazy. And then we're gonna be seeing, of course, making landfall for part of the Gulf Coast. Let's go and check out the CMC model here. CMC model is showing the same thing. Of course, it is going to be back in the Gulf by the next 66 hours, and that has time to strengthen and make landfall for part of Louisiana. But look, we're going to be seeing this rain way ahead of time. Look, this low pressure is literally in the middle of the Gulf. And look, we're seeing these extreme bands of rain already affecting the U.S. Absolutely crazy. And look, this rain is going to go all the way to Georgia, all the way to South Carolina. Absolutely crazy, and can make landfall for Louisiana based on the CMC. And then the new Icon model, it is showing the same thing. It's showing it strengthening up to 995 millibars, but making landfall for western Louisiana. Much of the other models showed it making landfall for central Louisiana or eastern Louisiana. So basically, all the main models do show Louisiana as the landfall. Let's go and check out the winds here for the GFS model. Here it is, bringing up to possibly 43 knots, 43 knots, so up to 50 knots as well out there for parts of the Bay of Campeche, and there's the weekend. And then here comes it kind of revives there, and then it does go back in the Gulf. It's at 997 millibars, possibly bring it up to 45 knots there. So it is, of course, tropical storm force winds, and then making landfall for parts of Louisiana. The CMC model is showing these strong winds as well. And of course, possibly bring it up to 40 knots, up to 45 knots at its peak. And then let's go ahead and check out the Icon model. Icon model has actually calmed down compared to yesterday, though. This is the 12Z, and it is only going to be showing up to possibly maybe 40 knots, 35 knots. So this thing has definitely calmed down. Let's go and check out the 850 HPA. Those going to be higher. It's going to be higher in the atmosphere. Actually, this thing is actually reloading. But yeah, this is the new GFS model run actually right now. It is going to be up to 993 millibars, and then 998 once it actually makes that landfall. And then here it comes back out. We'll check out the new model run when we're done with everything else there. And then I don't think the CMC is actually reloaded. Yeah, that's the CMC model that I just showed you was actually accurate. Let's go ahead and check out the wind shear. So we're gonna be talking this. People are saying it's not favorable conditions to be a hurricane, or it's not gonna be favorable for have a huge tropical storm. Well, this is where you guys are wrong. Not really. Well, we might not have a hurricane. I mean, it's a 50-50 really. In my opinion, I think we might have a borderline category 1. But here, very favorable conditions for the Bay of Campeche right now. Very little wind shear. The wind shear flows right here. The Caribbean. Really, if anywhere has extreme unfavorable conditions, it's going to be for the Caribbean and Northern Gulf right now. But that's right now, not 5 days from now. And as we now move to the next 48 hours, look at this shear. It's completely falling apart for parts of the Western Gulf of Mexico and Northern Gulf of Mexico. This system's going to be right here for parts of the Yucatan Peninsula, where we have the shears dying down. This thing dies down extremely fast. Look at this, where this low pressure system is by the next 78 hours. It's right here. We have extremely little shear. All the shears to the north of it. So the southeastern coast and Caribbean, you guys have very unfavorable conditions for the next coming days. And look, this has no shear whatsoever. This shear completely changes within less than a week. And after Cristobal makes landfall, we have no shear. Like no shear at all for parts of the Western Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. Also SSTs here. We have very warm waters. Actually, right now we have up to 29 to 30 degrees Celsius here for parts of the Bay of Campeche. And then we have decently warm temperatures here up to 27 degrees Celsius is our coldest SSTs for this whole system's track. And that's going to be heading straight there. So actually, it might be better. It actually might strengthen a bit more if it does go this way to Louisiana, not if it goes to Florida or Alabama. It actually might be a little tad weaker. But if it were to go like this, then it would actually have really strong winds. And then the last thing we'll be looking at here is the total accumulated precipitation here. We're going to be seeing up to a foot of rain for parts of these areas. We're going to be seeing, you can definitely see this track. And like I said, we're going to be seeing catastrophic flooding for states that aren't even close to where Cristobal is going to make landfall. Look at this. Louisiana. It's going to be most likely central Louisiana. This is the track. Look how far to the east we go. As far east. Not even the outer bands are this close. And look at this. Up to possibly 7 inches of rain for parts of Florida. Off the coast, we can be seeing up to 9.5 inches of rain for parts that are hundreds and hundreds of miles to the east of the outer bands. Also, parts of Key West up to 5 inches. Parts of all the way southern Georgia up to 4 to 5 inches of rain. And then, look at this, parts of right here in the central Gulf up to a foot or more of rain. Parts of central or western Louisiana coast could be seeing up to a foot of rain as well. Seems like we're going to be seeing more rain for parts that are far east than actually areas that are getting directly hit. That's what it looks like. And let's go ahead and check out the new GFS model. I think we might have went a little too fast for this. But yeah, this is the new GFS model here. It is showing getting up to around 40 knots here, maybe 43 knots by the next 66 hours, which is what we saw yesterday. So could definitely be seeing this thing back and running by June 6th. If we look at the zoomed in model, we can possibly have up to 40 knots by the next 66 hours at 999 millibars. And I believe also the GFS, yeah, as you see, this thing is going to be kind of avoiding that central Mexico or that Central America inland area. Is going to kind of stay right on the coast, the most far inland. Actually, this low pressure might be over Guatemala by the next 24 hours. So that will actually, sorry if my mic fell. That'll be 2 effects on Guatemala where this low pressure goes directly over Guatemala. That's absolutely crazy. And then of course this thing kind of goes directly to the north. But I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. As you see, look, it did that weird turn like this. It's doing that weird U-turn, and that's gonna go like this, basically going straight up to the central Gulf of Mexico there. But I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and bye guys.